The following is brought to you by crazy dog people everywhere.
And on the 9th day, God looked down on his wide-eyed children and said they need a companion. Somebody willing to wake up, give kisses, pee on a tree, sleep all day, wake up again, give more kisses, then stay up until midnight basking in the glow of a television set. So God made a dog.
And now, it's time for the Down with Dogs podcast, a dog cast dedicated to keeping your furry baby fit, healthy, and happy. Here's your host, Courtney, and her boy, Jackson.
Welcome to episode 7 of the Down with Dogs podcast. Today's guest is Dr. John Robb, Protect the Pets out of, are you in Newtown, Connecticut, Dr. Robb?
Yeah, that's where my current facility is located, in Newtown, correct.
I am so excited. We're going to be talking about vaccines, the rabies shot, changing the laws, leading the way is Dr. John Robb, and I have been following you for years, and I just want to take 2 seconds to thank you for doing what you're doing.
You're welcome, Courtney. It's all about the pets.
It really is. And if I could read your mission statement, I think your mission statement says a lot about you and what we'll be talking about. So here it is. Dr. John Robb's mission statement, protect the pets, to allow veterinarians to make decisions that are in the best interest of an animal's health, to prevent animals from being over-vaccinated, which can lead to illness or death, to bring awareness to pet owners of the danger of over-vaccination, and to amend the rabies law. I think this is an amazing mission statement.
Well, I think it hits at the heart of one of the most cruel things going on in veterinary medicine right now, which is pet owners trusting the system, walking into hospitals in Connecticut and, quite frankly, all over the world, and their pets being injured with no medical benefit. It's a horrendous situation, and it has to change.
It does have to change. And let me just say, Dr. Robb, because I know a lot of my friends are like, what are you talking about? They'll get the card in the mail that says your dog is due for its shots. And most often, they don't question what the shots are. They just go and they get it done. So I feel, and you let me know if I'm right or wrong, I think, from what I understand, you could have a 10-pound Chihuahua is getting the same amount of that vaccine as a 100-pound Great Dane.
Well, that's happening every day. And, in fact, 2 studies clearly demonstrate the problem. There was a study done, basically injuries to pets, or in this case, complications from vaccines within the first 72 hours after vaccination. And the study, which was 1.2 million pets, clearly demonstrated that one thing and one thing only, that as the weight goes down, vaccine reactions go up. And it's a simple concept, but the thing is, if you give everybody 1 cc, the little guys are getting sick. Some of them die of anaphylaxis right in the office before they get out the door. So that study, along with a second study that showed more recently that titers go up as the weight goes down, and we'll talk about titers because that's really the key here, but titers go up as the weight goes down, and a titer indicates that pet is already immune. So there you go. So if we lower the volume, we can get an acceptable titer with a lower dose and not put these small pets at risk. But right now, doing that is considered illegal, which is just a horrendous situation.
We're talking to Dr. John Robb, protector of the pets out of Newtown, Connecticut, talking about vaccines, over-vaccinating our pets. And yes, I'd love to talk about titers. This is something I've been researching and going forward with my dog, who's had so many health issues since getting his 3-year rabies shot a year ago. I will be doing titers. I know that my vet said she can do them, but she didn't discuss price or how it's done, or exactly what it is.
Well, that's so interesting, Courtney, because, if you ask that same veterinarian, do they do a titer on themselves, that would say yes. So we veterinarians will not go in and get a rabies shot every 3 years. That would be less expensive than doing a titer, but we go in periodically and check the measurable antibodies to rabies in our bloodstream following vaccination. That's called active immunity. And if our titer, if those measurable antibodies are 0.1 international units per mil or greater, we consider ourselves immune and we would never get another vaccine. Yet we walk into the exam room, don't even think about doing a titer to check the immunity status of that pet, and shoot them up every 3 years regardless, besides the fact of giving the smaller dogs 1 cc. But the point is, if there's a test that can measure immunity, and the pet has no medical benefit from a vaccine, then that's, to me, is malpractice to inject it, and yet there's a double standard because veterinarians, like I said, if you said to your veterinarian, do you do a titer on yourself, she or he would have said yes. And there's the Hippocratic, the hypocrisy in this situation. I mentioned Hippocratic because we took an oath to keep up with the latest science and do no harm, and yet we don't do that, which means we're not living our oath, but going along with a bad law. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But one last thing I'll say about titers to bring it in perspective for the listeners is most all of us have been vaccinated for mumps, measles, and rubella as children, and yet we don't go in and get a shot every 3 years. We don't get a card from our doctor saying it's time for your MMR vaccine. It's been 3 years.
Right.
We don't label the MMR vaccine good for 3 years only or good for 1 year only. We don't label those vaccines. And the reason is because they last a lifetime in most cases. And in fact, if you or I wanted to go work at a hospital, a human hospital, they wouldn't even ask us to bring our vaccine history for MMR because that doesn't tell you anything. But what they would ask is to allow a simple blood test that they would do. And if they do that titer for MMR and we pass, we start work because we have active immunity secondary to the MMR vaccine we had as children. So the point is the science is the same. So why aren't we applying it to our pets?
I agree. And I'm just, for those who don't know what a titer is it just a simple blood test? Say you're taking your dog in because he needs a vaccine. Is it a simple blood test that you pull from the dog that just tells you if your dog is immune already and then you don't need that vaccine?
Exactly. I mean, titer, the word titer comes from titration. In other words, you take a sample of serum from a pet or a person, if you were doing that on the MMR, and you expose that virus to that serum. And if it neutralizes the virus, in other words, if the antibodies are present in the serum, they will then neutralize that virus, and you consider that pet immune. Now, you then take that sample and dilute it in half, 1 to 2, and do it again. And if it works again, the titer is 1 to 2. You go to 1 to 4, 1 to 16. So you titrate to find the number of titrations or dilutions you can do where it still neutralizes the virus. And if it's 1 to, 2,800, then obviously there's a ton of antibodies there present. That pet has active immunity. But the truth is, any measurable antibodies indicates that immune system is primed and ready to go. So there's a lot of things out there that are misconstrued that confuse people. So really it should be a yes or no test, like a pregnancy test, because if you can measure any circulating antibodies, that pet is immune as one that's been over-vaccinated that has huge numbers of circulating antibodies because it's actually most likely a sick pet that's been over-vaccinated. So any titer, any measurable antibody equals immunity, and that pet should not receive a vaccine with no medical benefit.
And it seems so black and white, and it makes me so angry that they're not changing the laws.
Well, it is black and white, and the reason they're not changing the laws there's two basic reasons. Number one, because this is a moral issue. Number one is the love of money. This whole industry is entrenched in over-vaccinating, and the pharmaceutical companies, of course, head the way. And then many of the politicians have been working with these pharmaceutical companies because they support them in various ways with their huge dollars being made. So that's the first thing, is money's being made. But the second thing is fear. Veterinarians who know the truth, they're lowering their volume. They're finding creative ways not to injure the pets, but they won't stand up and admit that there's a problem because they're fearful of losing their license. So between the love of money for those who are just, going to kill pets for a profit, and those who know better but are not willing to stand up because of fear, this is where the issue comes from.
We are talking to Dr. John Robb, Protect the Pets out of Newtown, Connecticut, leading the way in changing the laws, amending the rabies law, as well as protecting our pets from being over-vaccinated. As responsible pet owners, Dr. Robb, what are some things, like as a responsible pet owner, we can do to keep our pets healthy? Is there something we should do when we go to the vet? The first thing we should ask them? Okay.
Absolutely. This movement, the Protect the Pets movement, is a movement of educated pet owners, educated people.